I will now go to the mayor of Ozamiz City, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Ando Oaminal, are you still online?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Salamat doon sa offer mo na baka sakaling i-withdraw ng sangguniang bayan mo yung aking persona non grata. Pero kung ayaw naman nila, okay lang. Kahit naman ganoon, tama rin naman ang sinabi mo, kahit konting pondo naman nakapagbigay ako sa inyong lugar dahil kaibigan ko nga yung tatay mo, thinking that everything will be on process. Kagaya ng sinabi mo kanina, and I admire you, sabi mo, you have followed all the legal processes and everything is on board, above board. Hindi ba? So nung magbigay ako ng pondo riyan, ang siyempre, naniniwala naman ako na kaya nating ipatupad ang mga project, basta't wag nang nating i-abbreviate ang mga processes. Alam mo naman, Mayor, ang ginagawa namin dito ay hindi para pasamain ang mga projects ng ating mga katulad mong mga namiminuno ng LGU, para tingnan lamang at makatulong kami kung talagang tinutupad at nandun sa ayon sa batas, alang-alang na rin sa interes ng inyong mga constituents. Pareho tayo doon sa ganung klaseng purpose, Mayor. Anyway, noong nakaraang hearing, in the last hearing, Mr. Mayor, your administrator on record, sinabi niya that there are about 500 individuals consisting of some 100 families who will benefit from the Lam-An housing project. In your capacity as the city mayor, will you confirm the truthfulness of his statement?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that is correct. There are approximately 100 families and close to 500 individuals who will benefit from the project once it will be fully completed, Mr. Chair.
On February 10, 2020, Mr. Mayor, Engineer Caroline Abinales testified in court that there will be 10 units for every floor of the housing projects. Yung phase 1, Mr. Mayor, is consisting only of 2 floors. Yung phase 2, 3 floors. So kung on the assumption that one unit will occupy one family, that will be only about how many families, Mr. Mayor?
59. Mr. Chair, for the phase 1 and phase 2, that would be a total of 59 units po. And there is still a planned phase 3 for it, Mr. Chair, to accommodate all the 100 families.
But we're talking of 500 individuals consisting of 130 families, according to the testimony of City Administrator Fuentes.
Yes, Mr. Chair. That's why
it will take a long time, Mr. Mayor, before all the would-be beneficiaries can be housed. Is that a fair assumption?
Well, we hope that it would be completed by before the end of President Duterte's term, Mr. Chair. And we have a complete list of these 500 individuals, and we are willing to share it with you, to present it to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that testimony, Mr. Mayor. We're really interested to get that list, because that is precisely the names of those would-be beneficiaries to the housing project in Lam-An. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and they are members of the urban poor of that barangay, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I also assume, Mr. Mayor, that because you have a list, and that list is now comprising of the registry of socialized housing beneficiaries in Ozamiz City. I assume that.
I don't believe
Mr. Mayor,
I don't
that
believe
you have a registry, because Section 17 of Republic Act 7279, the LGUs, that's City of Ozamiz included, are mandated to identify and register all beneficiaries in accordance with the system designed by the Housing and Urban Development Coordinating Council, or HUDCC, 1 year from the effectivity of that law. So I assume, Mr. Mayor, that that list existed even before you conceived that housing project, because this law mandates every LGU to prepare a register of beneficiaries 1 year from the effectivity of that law. So I'm assuming that the registry, the list of which must conform with the framework of Republic Act 7279 and the system designed by the HUDCC. Is my assumption correct? Because it is not only a common listing of people, it has to follow the design, the registry designed by the HUDCC. That is the legitimate list of registry that we need to receive in the committee, Mr. Mayor.
I don't believe so, Mr. Chair. The list that we have is the list of the residents, beneficiaries that will be benefited by the project. And per consultation with my lawyer, the regional trial court already ruled that RA 7279 does not apply in this case, Mr. Chair, as per ruling of the court.
The committee is not bound to, uh, or is not strictly bound on the ruling of the court. First of all, we did not have a copy of that, and the RTC is not the last arbiter of law. So we need to follow strictly what the 7279 strictly mandates. If there is a registry, Mr. Mayor, that will be no problem, because that is in accordance with the mandate of the law. And for the RTC to rule that the project in Lam-An or 7279 is not applicable, it is for the committee to decide also on that. I don't think the RTC is in a position to declare that the Lam-An project is not governed by Republic Act 7279. As I have stated during the last hearing, Mr. Chair, I have already cited at least 3 landmark rulings where even the Supreme Court already advised LGUs that in the implementation of socialized housing programs, they have to observe strictly sections 9 and 10 of Republic Act 7279. As a matter of fact, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to inform you also that under Section 7 of Republic Act 7279, all city and municipal governments are mandated to conduct an inventory of all lands within the respective localities. Do you have that inventory, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chair, I can show you the order on the screen, the list of beneficiaries, and as far as the city is concerned, we just followed the court order. And since the court already said that RA 7279 does not apply, so we pushed through with the project. So I beg to disagree, Your Honor, though I am not a lawyer by profession, but the local government is bound by the orders of the RTC as a party to the expropriation proceedings. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So that's okay with you. That's okay with me also. But this now a different question, because Section 7 of RA 7279, all city and municipal governments are mandated to conduct an inventory of all lands within the respective localities. Do you have this inventory?
I have to consult with the city planning, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mr. Chair, the reason why I am also asking this question, because there is a need for the LGUs to coordinate with the NHA under Section 8 of that law, HLURB, NAMRIA, and even the Land Management Bureau in identifying lands for socialized housing and resettlement. Kasi Mayor, kaya namin inuuna ito, alam namin na bago ka makapagpatayo ng isang housing project, you need to also identify the available housing areas. Kaya nga, tinatanong ko kung may inventory because in that inventory, you will be able to locate properly where to build your housing projects. That is why the law was also very extant or very clear on that. So assuming you have an inventory, may I assume also that you coordinated with the NHA, HLURB, and the rest of the agencies? Kasi importante ito in identifying the socialized housing.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Actually, the regional head of the NHA did a site inspection of the Lam-An housing project, and he even committed to secure additional funds for particularly for the construction of phase 3, Mr. Chair. And again,
That's another, Mr. Mayor. Ang kasi sinasabi natin are policy issues na before
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
before you can look for a suitable location kasi we need to look at the inventories of several lands that are suitable for housing projects. That's why we're starting from these questions. Kasi as I had asked your city administrator in the last hearing, I even asked him about the priorities in the acquisition of lands. Kasi for socialized housing, Mr. Mayor, merong mga priorities kasi. Yung pinakahuli dito ay yung resort to private lands. Ang nangyari kasi parang ang nauna, kaya lang namin tinitingnan whether we really followed the law. In the priorities kasi makikita mo sa section 9, merong dapat muna nating tingnan na mga ibang locations before you can get into the private lands. Ito yung sinasabi kasi ng batas. And it seems to me that the priorities, maski na yung modes of acquisition, ay hindi ninyo masyadong na-consider because you started right away from expropriation, invest na community mortgage, land swapping, land banking, merong negotiated sale, merong donation to the government and consolidation. There are available kasi modes eh. But what you did in Lam-An, Mr. Mayor, nauna yung expropriation, which is actually the last among the modes of acquisition. That was in the last hearing. Anyway, I want to ask you, Mr. Mayor, if your office coordinated with the HLURB and HUDCC in order that the Lam-An project be consistent with the National Urban Development and Housing Framework as mandated under Section 6 of Republic Act 7279.
Mr. Chair, as I have repeatedly mentioned, um, in for the local government, since the court already ruled that it is not covered by Republic Act 7279, so we could say that we did not follow the provisions as stipulated in that Republic Act. And Mr. Chair, I'd like to make it clear also that this project is a national government project as implemented by the DPWH. It's not an initiative of the NHA. It's funded by the GAA, and the role of the local government is simply to provide the land that we tried to negotiate. We only went to expropriation proceedings, Mr. Chair, when a few individuals opposed. And this is why, as we presented earlier, out of the 500 beneficiaries, at least only approximately 15 are still opposing up to today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, you referred to a court ruling. Which court is that? What case are you referring to, please?
The expropriation cases, Mr. Chair.
I see. In the expropriation case, did the court specifically say that Republic Act 7279 is not applicable? Was there a ruling? Was there a dispositive portion in ruling whatever is that case?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I can even flash the order on the screen. I can let my assistant do it in a while.
You can you please read that portion where the court ruled that 7279 is not applicable in Lam-An project?
Mr. Chair, as can be seen in the screen, um, as to defendants' contention that the project falls under RA 7279, which provides for an exemption on the expropriation of properties classified as small land holdings, the court holds that this present case does not fall under this law. The plaintiff presented pieces of evidence which establish that the project is a multipurpose building that is a project of the DPWH listed under Fiscal Year 2019 General Appropriations Act, or GAA. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So that particular ruling, Mr. Chair, we will be able to ask the Office of the Court Administrator is present anyway, but that will be in the later part of this hearing, because in our view, well, particularly personally, the court was not quite correct in making that disposition, because it it looked only on the basis of funding. It seems to me that because it is funded by DPWH, then it it is already beyond the uh, the applicability of Republic Act 7279. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but I do not share the opinion of the Honorable Trial Court in that particular issue. Anyway, let me go to the another question, Mr. Mayor. When you expropriated those lands in Purok sa Lam-An, technically speaking, these are all your neighbors, isn't it, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. May I ask you why you did not include, for example, the property where you live, which is very, very close to the property expropriated? I believe the compound and the house where you live is quite sizable. It seems to me it's more than 3,000 square meters. If you have proposed, for example, to build those to the phase one and phase two, I believe they can be accommodated because the area is so spacious. Why do you think you have to exclude the properties where you live? That could have been a golden opportunity, Mr. Mayor, to have convinced Ozamiz nons that you really care for the constituents.
Mr. Chair, we just concurred with the choice of the DPWH, and our house did not need any development. The spaces, the lots that were identified were the spaces where these beneficiaries were residing before. And for these who opposed, aside from those who have decent housing, Mr. Chair, their houses affected the entrance of those living in the outside, Mr. Chair. So the DPWH did the survey, and as much as possible, Mr. Chair, they tried to avoid those structures na kung sana kung hindi pumayag, gusto nila sana i-avoid, but it cannot be accommodated dahil sa development plan ng community, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, the basis for the housing project is not whether or not the area will be developed or not. The basis is whether we can accommodate as many informal settlers as there are, as many urban poor as there are. If the only objective is to provide housing projects and we need spaces, I think the compound where you live is a suitable one. And therefore, you will not need to expropriate other lands. Kasi kung i-contribute nyo naman yan, it will be offered for the urban poor. Sabi ko nga, napakaganda siguro ang legacy na maiiwanan ng inyong pamilya sapagkat you sacrifice your own interest. Kasi maganda naman yung lugar, sabi mo nga, hindi na i-develop, madaling-madali na ilagay yun, yung dalawang building, spaces 1 and 2. Hindi nyo ba naisip na napakaganda sana ang pagkakataon, Mr. Mayor,
Mr.
when you offered that particular space of yours?
Mr. Chair, the objective is not only to provide housing, but also to uplift the conditions in Purok 6. So it was a flood-prone area and a fire-prone area. It needed to be developed, Mr. Chair. Marami po doon mga informal settlers po, Mr. Chair. Kaya po, kung saan lang sila tumira, doon po talaga natin sila ibabalik lang through this housing project, Mr. Chair. Wala
So-
naman po mga informal settlers na nakatira sa property namin or sa bahay namin, Mr. Chair. They did not want to leave their area. Gusto nila bumalik lang doon. So sila ang the DPWH selected the lot. Nakita nila yung they conducted the feasibility study and nag-agree yung mga beneficiaries. So doon lang din ibabalik, Mr. Chair. There is no relocation. It's not a relocation site, Mr. Chair. It is a development of the community that they were residing in, Mr. Chair. It's an on-site development, Mr. Chair. Hindi po sila nilipat. Ngayon lang po sila temporarily nilipat. So
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Mayor. You also stated that it was DPWH which selected the area. Did you not say that?
yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
It's
so
an on-site development, Mr. Chair, which is in line with the initiatives also of our honorable speaker.
yeah, I'm concentrating on the statement that you made that it was the DPWH which selected the area over which the two buildings will be built. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So makatwid talagang you are
Of course,
admitting.
together with the local government and concurred also by the local leaders, Mr. Chair. But Mr. Chair, this project was initiated before our administration. As mentioned earlier, kaya nga medyo nagkagulo na before the elections. I wasn't the mayor yet. I wasn't even a councilor, Mr. Chair. Ano lang, nasimula na ito. So dahil sa maraming mga challenges, kaya nag-start yung construction during our term na po, Mr. Chair.
No, Mr. Mayor, but the fact shows otherwise. Dahil nakalagay yung Resolution 5719, yun nga yung dininay ni Engineer Abinales. The administration previous to yours tried to stop that particular project. Ngayon, ang tanong ko lamang, totoo pala na ang nag-identify ng area is the DPWH. Yun lang naman ang tinatanong ko sa iyo because it was already admitted when you
Yes.
said that, tama ba yun? It was
Yes,
the DPWH.
Yes, Mr. Chair. That
Okay.
is true. That
Ngayon, Mr. Mayor, talagang lumilitaw lang talaga na hindi natin na-prioritize and you did not resort to the prioritized order in acquiring socialized housing to resettle and to house our urban poor and informal settlers. Ang talagang nag-administer ng selection is DPWH, not in relation to the provisions of Republic Act 72279. Anyway, inamin mo na rin naman, Mayor, kasi ang pagkakaakala mo dahil ang Mayor ang nagsabi nga naman ay yung korte. I'm not blaming you because you relied on the ruling of the court that Republic Act 7279 is not applicable. But for us in the committee, Mr. Mayor, I assure you that we will be objective in analyzing this kasi kailangan nating makita lahat ang bawat anggulo nito in order for us to be able to prepare a balanced and an objective report. Yun na muna, Mayor.